Hello everyone, welcome to the series of videos on SAP AI Core. In the previous video, we looked at how we can create the training YAML file, and we also saw how we can onboard the GitHub and also let SAP AI Core know about the location of the folder in which the YAML files are kept. So now continuing with the training phase, so the next step is to create the AWS S3 bucket credentials. So we need to let SAP AI Core know the credentials to connect to the AWS S3, and for that we can submit a REST API call so that it knows about the credentials. Now, this is going to be used for copying the data set into the /app/data folder. That's what we specified in the training YAML file. And also, once the training is complete, it's going to copy the model from the /app model folder in the container to AWS S3. And for this, we need to let SAP AI Core know about the AWS S3 credentials. So once we run this command, then the next step is to copy the data set. So this is your training data in the form of CSV file, and we want to copy this into a location in AWS S3. So we can run this command configure AWS configure so that the AWS is configured with the AWS CLI. Then we can run this copy command to copy the iris dataset.csv file into AWS S3. And later on, we can retrieve this CSV file into the container. Okay, so now our CSV file, the training data, is in AWS S3 bucket. Now, what we want to do is we want to tell SAP AI Core where the CSV file is located in the AWS S3. So what we are going to do is we are going to run another REST API command. And here we are going to say that it is in this folder training data. So this is where we uploaded the CSV file. So we are going to tell that it is in this training data. So if we go back to the previous step, we are saying, hey, we uploaded the CSV file into this training data folder. So in this command, we are telling it a SAP AI Core that the CSV files, in fact, whatever, so it doesn't just have to be that one file because all the files in this folder will get copied into app/data folder. So now that we have all that stuff, what we want to do is we want to fill the placeholders in the workflow template with the concrete values. We have the input artifact. So when we run this, this is going to give us an artifact ID. Make a note of this ID. So now we can fill all the placeholders in the workflow template. So for the class label input parameter, we are giving a value of 1. For the kernel input parameter, we are giving a value RBF. And then for the iris data set, so this is our training data, we are giving the artifact ID that we got in the previous step. So this is going to be all the files in this folder training data. So this artifact ID points to that training data folder. So all the files in the training data folder is now part of the input artifacts. So not just one file. If you put multiple files, all that file will get copied into app/data as well. Next thing is we want to create the machine learning code, the ML code. So this actually is the most important step because basically at the end of the day, this is what we are trying to run in a productive environment. So we do need this code. And this code right now, we have written it with Python using the scikit-learn libraries, but you can write it with any language or any framework. And I'll kind of briefly explain this code right here. So scikit-learn provides like convenient methods to train a model. So all we need to do is call some of the scikit-learn methods, and I will show this when we get to that stage. Now that we have the machine ML code, so the next step is also to create a Docker file. So what we want is we want to have complete control over the container. So we are going to use the Docker container container. And in our very first step, we are using a Python image with the latest release 3.12. We are going to make a directory /app/src, and this is where we are going to copy our main.py, the Python code, into this folder. And then we've created a couple of folders, app/data. This is where we want to copy our training data into this folder. And this app/model, this is where we want to copy. This is where the model will get created. And once this model gets created, then we will copy to the AWS S3 bucket. So we run a pip3 install, and this is a very simple Docker file. So you can use this for pretty much most of the requirements. Okay, so now that we have the Docker file, what we want to do is we want to create the Docker image and then go ahead and upload it to the Docker Hub. So we do that as well. So we upload the image to Docker Hub once we create this Docker image. Now, we also need to let SAP AI Core know about the Docker credentials. So just like we stored the AWS S3 credentials, we are going to store the Docker credentials as well with SAP AI Core. So in our training YAML file, the container, we specified a location to the Docker Hub. So we need the credentials so that SAP AI Core can retrieve the Docker image and run it. Okay, so now what we can do is we can trigger the training of the model. So for this, with the configuration that we created some time ago, we can go ahead and, so this is where we created the configuration. So this will give us a config ID, make a note of this, and then we can go ahead and trigger the training of the model. And so this will start the model and it will complete. And once it is complete, once the execution is complete, this will go ahead and create the model. And this model will be copied to the AWS S3 bucket. Yeah, so the flow looks something like this. It starts with the training. There's the input artifacts that is supplied to it. There is configuration, all the values that we supply for the placeholders. Then the execution happens. And then once execution is complete, the model is created and this model is copied over to the AWS S3 bucket. Okay, so let's look at all the steps in detail one by one. So the first step is to create the AWS S3 credentials. So if I go to my Postman collection, so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up my AWS S3 credentials. So I can give any name here that I want. So along with this, I also give in my headers the resource group. So I'm going to supply the resource group and I'm going to run this. And this is going to create the secret to connect to AWS S3. So then our next step is to copy the data set in AWS S3. So what I can do is I can go, I have a few commands here. So let me go to my commands.txt file. And you can see there is this command here to copy the file into the training data folder. So that's where we are going to copy this file. So I can run this command and this is going to take my CSV file. It's already there in my training folder. If you had cloned my GitHub repository, it should have that there. So running this command is going to copy this file into AWS S3 bucket. Now, quick note about this AWS S3 bucket is if you have an account, that's fine. But if you don't have an account, what you can do is you can simply go to the AWS S3. You can go to your sub account and you can create an instance for AWS S3. This comes part of the free tier thing. So you can use that credentials to connect. So here what I've done is in my free tier account, I have created an object store. So you can go to create and you can create an object store. So you can create an object store and and then you can say S3 standard, and then you can provide the val like an instance name, and this will create the object store for you. So this object store is there for you. So you can go into this object store, and this has, if you click on the object store, this will give you all the values that you need. So you can use that to connect to the AWS by providing all this AWS key ID, secret, and so on. So now the AWS S3 credentials are stored in SAP AI Core. What you can do now is copy the training data set. Again, like I said, I have this command right here. I can go ahead and run this. And if I run this command, this is going to go ahead and copy this file. I've already run this before, but that's okay. I can run it one more time. This is going to copy this training set, this file into this training data folder. Now I can also verify that this file did get copied over. So this ls command is going to list the files in this folder. And right now there's going to be only one file, but if you have multiple files, that's fine too. All the multiple files will get copied to app/data folder in the container. Okay, so now we have uploaded the files into AWS S3. Now what I want to do is I want to register this, I want to let SAP AI Core know that my file is in this training data folder. So for that, I go here and I'm going to register this dataset artifact. So I'm telling that this is in this training data folder, and I'm going to run this. And this will tell that, okay, that's good. And this gives me an artifact ID, so I can copy this artifact ID for later use. Okay, so now that we have the artifact ID, I can actually create the configuration at this moment. So if I go into my configuration, and this is where I'm going to fill in all the placeholder values. So you can see that I have to provide some values for the placeholders. So I'm giving a value of 1 for the class label. So I have two input parameters. So I'm giving a value of 1 for this class label, and I'm giving a value of RBF for this kernel. And then for this input artifacts, so we had just registered the dataset artifact. We got the artifact ID, and I'm passing it here. So now SAP AI Core knows where to copy the training data from, and it's going to copy that into the app/data folder, and it's going to pass values of 1 and RBF for the class label and kernel. So I run this, and this is going to create me this configuration. So I can copy this configuration. So now my template, all the placeholder values are filled. Now I need to execute it, but before I execute it, what I also want to do is I want to create my Docker image. I've already created my Docker image, uploaded it, but let me also look at the code and explain what the code does before I do this. Now let me go to my code here. So this is my main.py. This is my ML code. So if you're familiar with the scikit-learn, then you're probably aware of what needs to be done. So here I'm saying my data path is app/data iris dataset.csv. We know that the SAP AI Core is going to copy the training data into app/data folder. So we can get the data path from here. And then the two input parameters, we can get them as environment variables. So if I look into this training YAML file, so if I look in this training YAML file, we are supplying these two input parameters as an environment variable, and we can copy this here. And then the model path, so once the model is once the training is complete, it's going to create this model file in this location right here. So we are breaking the data into training data and test data. And then we are going to use this SVM, the vector method algorithm to do the prediction. So the support vector machine algorithm, that's what we are going to be using. We are going to pass in a value of 1 and a value of RBF for the C and kernel values. And scikit-learn, if you're familiar with it, gives you this fit method that you can simply use, and that was going to train the model. So just this one line is going to train the model with this train X and train Y data. And just to see what the score is, we're also getting the score and then we are printing it as well. And once this is complete, we are going to take this model and we are going to use Pickle to dump it into this path. And this path is going to be the app. I mean, this is where the model is going to be. Okay, so we have all this information here, and then step 8 is I'm going to create a Docker file. So I've already looked at the Docker file, so let me look at it one more time. So here we start with the Python image, we copy all the files, and basically we are going to run pip3 install with the requirements.txt file. And then I need to upload this to the Docker Hub. So I have the commands.txt file, and here is my image. This is going to build this image, and I've already built this, so I'm not going to build it again. And I can run this command here to push the Docker image to the Docker Hub. So now what I also need to do now is I need to tell SAP AI Core, I need to give it credentials to the Docker Hub. So here in my Postman, I have another REST API that's going to take the Docker password and everything, and this should create a Docker credentials for me. So this one already exists, so I've already done this before. So at this moment, I think everything looks good. So all I need to do is trigger an execution. So where's my configuration? So I have this configuration that was created. So this is going to be my configuration ID, and all I need to do is pass in that configuration ID. So this is the filled workflow template. So at this moment, this configuration ID denotes the workflow template with all the input parameters filled, the input artifacts with the proper artifact ID, and so on. So now it's just a matter of submitting it so that it gets executed. So the workflow template will now get executed once I run this. So if I do this, you will see that it says the status is the target status is completed. So that's what we want in our training. So the training is going to start and then it is going to complete. So that is going to be our target. So our actual status right now is going to be unknown, but eventually it will go into pending, then it will go into running, and then the actual status will go into completed, because we want the desired state and the actual state to match. So that's what Kubernetes will do for us. So if I go into my SAP AI Launchpad, so if I go into this Launchpad right here, and if I go into my executions, so I will see that there is an execution already started for us. So let me go ahead and select my AI tutorial group. And then if I go into the executions, you can see it's now in the running state, which is good. So it was unknown before, but now it's in the running state. But now once running is complete, it will go into the completed state. And then once it goes into the completed state, then it is also going to create a deployment of like the trained model. It's going to copy the trained model and it is going to put it into the SW3 bucket. So it's going to take a couple of minutes, so I'll come back once it is complete. Okay, the training is now complete. As you can see, the desired state is equal to the actual state, so everything is looking good. So if I open up the execution, the training execution itself, you can see that it started with the training, the input artifacts, the iris data set was copied over, the input parameters were filled, execution happened, and then the output artifacts, this is where the model got created, copied over to SW3, AWS S3 bucket as well. So if I can check if the model is there. So for this, I need the execution ID. So I copy this execution ID, and I can do a list of the files in the training data in the AI core mod, like under the execution ID iris model. If I check the files in this location, I should see a model file right here. So if I do this, you can see that there is a file. Yes, so there is the model file. This is the trained model that got copied over. One other thing that we can check is in our main.p in our Python file, we are also printing out the test data score. So if we go to the execution and if we go into the logs right here, you should see the test data score. It's given us a complete 1.0, which is pretty interesting. So you can see that we are printing out the test data score. Okay, so this means that our model is well, maybe there's something wrong, but anyways, it has a very high score. Okay, so this is good. So we have a trained model, and we can now step into the serving phase. Okay, see you all at the next video.